Is the Mexican residency visa topic making you confused more and more after spending hours on either YouTube, or maybe you're reading some information from government sites or blog posts that have either misleading information or completely outdated? Well, this video is here to help you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mexico Relocation Guide. Today's topic is all about Mexican residency visas for 2024. And don't worry, we are going to make this video stupid simple for you. We'll be talking about Mexican residency visa types, how to obtain a temporary residency visa in Mexico without economic solvency. And if you don't qualify for that, then we cover what the economic solvency requirements are and some watch-outs you need to know. Residency through ties to a Mexican citizen or residency through ties to a Mexican resident. I'll also cover the costs of obtaining a Mexican residency visa and some common mistakes, so let's get right into it. First, let's get into the different types of residency visas in Mexico. There are many, but most of you watching at home will apply through economic solvency. The two main types of residency visas in Mexico through economic solvency are temporary residency and permanent residency. Now let me explain each one. With a temporary residency visa, you are allowed to live in Mexico for more than 180 days and up to 4 years. You'll usually receive a card for 1 year, with the option to renew for 1, 2, or 3 additional years. If you apply for permanent residency in Mexico, you are allowed to live indefinitely without needing to renew your residency visa. Now, most of our customers start with a temporary residency and transition to permanent residency. Temporary residents can apply for a permanent residency visa in Mexico after 4 consecutive years without needing to prove economic solvency all over again. There is also residency in Mexico through family ties to a Mexican national. Now, depending on your ties to a Mexican citizen, you'll either have a temporary or permanent residency visa in Mexico. Now, there are also investor residency visas, student residency visas, visas for those who wish to adopt, and even visas for those who are petitioned by an employer in Mexico. For most people, the process for residency in Mexico starts at a Mexican consulate or embassy in your home country, with the exception of the special residency program known as RNE. I'm going to lead the video today with this program because this is a game changer for those people who do not qualify under economic solvency, but have dreams of moving to Mexico and have lost all hope. So don't give up, though, there is a solution. This special program gives you a 4-year temporary residency visa without having to prove financial solvency. But you first have to determine if you qualify. You'll need to have proof of visiting Mexico once or twice between 2015 and 2022. You will also need to be in Mexico with an expired FMM, which means for most people, you can come to Mexico today and enter as a tourist to get an FMM and wait for it to expire. You can be given an FMM for 180 days, 30 days, 7 days, 10 days, 15 days. Basically, it's all at the discretion of the immigration agent who registers your entry. I have found, though, that very touristic airports like Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico City all give you 180 days automatically. This means that you have to wait 6 months for your tourist permit to expire before you can apply for this special program. And you cannot leave Mexico and come back in 6 months, because in doing so, you would then get a new FMM. So my suggestion is for anyone who's interested, you go to airports that don't get a lot of tourists like Guadalajara, Querétaro, Mérida, and those kinds. Now, to apply for this, there will be a study to determine your case by immigration authorities. So for this reason, we really suggest hiring an immigration facilitator that is A, familiar with this program. Be careful, though, because several facilitators say that they're familiar with this program, but they really aren't and will just probably waste your time and money. And B, You want to make sure that your facilitator has years of experience working with immigration procedures. And I say that because there are a ton of people who move to Mexico and think, this can't be that hard. I'll just help people start their immigration process. They start an immigration consulting business, but don't know what they're doing. What ends up happening? The customer has to hire someone else who actually knows the law and is competent. And who has to pay? You do. So hire the right person the first time. If you don't qualify for the R&E program because you didn't come to Mexico in that time frame, or you can't afford to stay for 6 months or however long, then you'll need to apply for residency in Mexico via the more traditional route, which is through economic solvency. To apply via economic solvency, you'll need to first make an appointment with a Mexican consulate or embassy where you live. So what are the economic solvency requirements? This is one of those parts of the residency visa process that frustrates a lot of newcomers because they change yearly and there are inconsistencies depending on which Mexican embassy or consulate you apply in. Now, most of you watching us at home are watching us from the United States, so please keep in mind that I will share the following info in US dollars. To give you a good baseline example for economic solvency in 2024, for a temporary residency visa in Mexico, you must prove an income of at least 3,450 US dollars and up to 4,600 US dollars for the past 6 months, depending on where you apply. Or you can also show Social Security, savings, pensions, or investments with a minimum balance of 57,000 and up to 75,000 US dollars for the past 12 months, also depending on where you apply. For a permanent residency visa in Mexico, you must prove an income of at least $5,180 and up to 7,800 US dollars for the past 6 months. Or you can also use Social Security, savings, pensions, or investments with a minimum balance of 207,000 US dollars and up to 311,000 US dollars for the past 12 months, also depending on which Mexican consulate or embassy you apply in. And you only have to prove either income or savings, not both. Again, I highly suggest you visit and bookmark our income requirements for Mexican residency page. We update this throughout the year as we get new information from the embassies and consulates around the world. You won't find that level of deep dive analysis anywhere else. The link to that free resource, again, is in the comments. So what if you're applying with family members? In my experience, more and more Mexican consulates require that each applicant who's over 18 meet the minimum financial solvency requirements individually, especially couples who apply together. But don't worry, if you're applying together as a couple and you don't each have the financial solvency requirements, as long as the main applicant is approved and given residency, your family can come to Mexico as tourists and then you can sponsor them under the family unity. It's a sort of loophole in the immigration process that many people don't know about. And don't worry, I will leave a link to a variety of free resources and details about this Mexican residency process, the cost, the timeline, information on hiring a facilitator, and a lot of things related to this. It's going to all be included in the description of this video. Now, what if you are related to a Mexican citizen? Well, for family members of Mexican citizens, the general requirements are different, more favorable even. The Mexican government is very pro-family, so direct family members to Mexican citizens do not have to prove economic solvency, even at the consular level. Direct family members are considered spouses, parents, children under the age of 18, and even siblings under the age of 18. If your child or sibling is 18 or older, you will have to prove in a Mexican court that you are their legal guardian. As a Mexican citizen, you can apply for your family to become residents at a Mexican embassy or consulate, or you can also apply from within Mexico. Depending on whether you apply outside of Mexico or within Mexico will determine what documents you need to present. Now, do you have to live in Mexico? Well, one huge bonus of obtaining your Mexican residency is you do not have to live permanently to remain a resident in Mexico. This is why you may hear us tell you all the time that even if Mexico is a plan B or a plan C, you should apply for your residency sooner than later, especially if you're on the cusp of qualifying via economic solvency. And considering that the requirements tend to increase each year, you may need to act sooner than later. Or maybe you're unsure if you want to live in Mexico full time, and that's totally okay. You don't have to live in Mexico full time to remain a resident of Mexico. The only important note here is that if you become a temporary resident, you must come back to Mexico and renew your residency in person. Now, there are some additional perks of being a resident in Mexico, such as you can come in and out of Mexico as you'd like. You also have the ability to open bank accounts more easily than as a tourist. You can bring your foreign plated car as a temporary resident. You can also bring your household goods into Mexico free of import taxes once. You have access to Mexico's low-cost healthcare through IMSS. Many private healthcare insurance companies in Mexico require you to be a resident. You can also apply for a Mexican driver's license. You can work in Mexico or even run a business. If you own property, there are no capital gains when you go to sell your property in Mexico as a resident. There are certain discounts that are for locals only. For example, museums, archaeological sites, ferries in the Riviera Maya, and other transport and discounts. Some cities in Mexico have really strict rental practices and may require you to be a resident for you to be able to rent a place. The cost of getting a residency is very affordable compared to other countries. You can also bring pets with you long term. Now, the initial cost for a temporary residency visa in Mexico is about $350 US, depending on the exchange rate whenever you are watching this video. Now, this only includes the consular fee and the immigration fees in Mexico, which also tend to increase each year. The cost for a permanent residency visa is about $435 US. Again, keeping in mind that there are exchange rate variables and when you're watching this video. To get a breakdown of immigration fees, check out our free resources in the description of this video. Now, if you want to hire an immigration facilitator, which I think is worth every penny, the cost is around 4,000 to 8,000 pesos per person, depending on what legality they're going to be helping you with, what level of hand-holding they offer, how many documents they will translate for you, and some other details. To give you an idea, that's about $235 to about $500 US a person. It's not that much. It's worth every dime. Now, many consulates are overwhelmed and saturated with the influx of foreigners moving to Mexico. So if you're having trouble securing an appointment at a Mexican consulate or embassy, we have a couple of recommended immigration facilitators in our complete Mexico relocation guide that will assist you in scheduling your appointment for you. Now, one last thing on your extensive list of things to do for your move to Mexico. To learn more about our online guide, I'll leave a description in this video. Okay, now let's get into everyone's favorite topic, and that is common mistakes. Here are some of the most common mistakes I see or hear about. Number one, sometimes the consulates are the culprit for giving you wrong information. So please get the facts. Two, do not enter Mexico as a tourist when you are a resident. This automatically cancels your residency. Three, there is no guarantee that if you have the economic solvency requirements to qualify for permanent residency, that you will actually get permanent residency. The consulates have the final say on what residency visa you will receive. Don't get upset though. You can always apply for permanent residency after 4 years. 4, if you use an Airbnb or hotel address to finish your residency visa process in Mexico, you should know that you are required to notify immigration within 90 days of changing your address. This is especially important for people who don't plan on living in Mexico right away. 5, if you're applying as a married couple, some consulates require that each one of you qualify independently. If only one of you qualifies, don't worry. Get residency. And then once you're in Mexico, you can petition your spouse or other family members without having to prove additional economic solvency. 6, you will receive a stamp on your passport when you're approved for Mexican residency. This stamp is valid for 180 days only. You have up to 180 days to come to Mexico and finish the process. This is known as canje. Canje is a process by which you exchange that stamp in your passport for an actual card. You are not done with the process until you receive your residency card. 7. From the time you enter Mexico, you have 30 days to start the process at INM, which is Mexican immigration. If your appointment at INM for canje is past 30 days, don't worry, you're not going to get in trouble. But it does mean that you cannot leave Mexico until you get permission from immigration. Otherwise, you cancel your residency and you have to start the process all over again. 8, to finish your residency visa in Mexico, you will need to have an FMM, which is given to you when you enter Mexico. If you're driving, it's your obligation to stop at INM at the land border and ask for your FMM, because without this, you can't get your residency card. And it would be such a bummer for you to have to drive back to the border. 9, you might be asked to bring financials to renew your temporary residency at INM. It doesn't mean that you have to prove the income requirements all over again. In fact, I've never known anyone to get denied for not having a specific amount. But be prepared to get asked for money in the bank when you renew your temporary residency at immigration. Not every INM office requires this. 10. Once you get your residency visa stamped on your passport, you need to finish the process in Mexico the next time you enter. Meaning you can't come as a tourist on vacation while you have the residency stamp in your passport and come back at a later time to finish it. So let me know, has this been helpful to you? I would love to know in the comments of this video. I hope it has been and that it gives you a clear path to residency in Mexico. I also hope that it gives hope to those who thought they could no longer qualify for residency in Mexico based on the economic solvency requirements. So do me a favor, if you like this video, please share it with anyone you think might need this information on Mexican residency visas. And don't forget to give it a like. Now remember, I have included all the free resources that I mentioned in this video in the description and in the comment section. My name is Mariana. This is Mexico Relocation Guide, and we will see you all in another video very soon. Nos vemos.